Hey folks, Jules Polanitsky, CEO of the Future Privacy Forum. Hope you're back from Labor Day. Here are two stories that we were following today. One really struck me. A group of folks out of Stanford put out a report about ethical uses of data in higher ed. And in discussing the privacy issues, I really appreciated the way they worded in their report how they were incorporating privacy into their research about the ethical uses of higher data. I'm going to read it to you. They said they were going to use the term responsible use, and I like that because at FPF, as many of you know, we talk about advocating for responsible data use. Our Stanford friend said, responsible use is a term that we prefer to the more typical privacy or human subjects protection. In our view, responsible use includes respect for students' privacy, but it also captures values such as transparency and student autonomy that are sometimes confusingly lumped under the heading of privacy, as well as concepts such as obligations to take action and reduce adverse effects that are not typically considered privacy concerns. Similarly, responsible use covers the Belmont Report, considerations of respect for persons, beneficence, and justice. But it extends those values beyond the context of research to various other institutional uses. Furthermore, both existing normative frameworks are constraining. They limit potentially beneficial activity to protect other values, like keeping sensitive data to oneself. Responsible use constrains, but also connotes a responsibility to use data in ways that improve student learning and other outcomes. I thought that was a really artful way to describe the issue, and one that sometimes in the privacy debate, where we look at privacy alone and perhaps don't consider as well, do we have some responsibility to use data to solve problems? Obviously, those can't outweigh or obliterate privacy concerns, but if we don't ever consider whether or not the data we have calls on us to inform the user of challenges, of opportunities or risks, we miss out perhaps on the full understanding of that use. So you can understand why I liked it. All right, let me talk about the second story. Brian Krebs, many of you know Brian Krebs from his days at the Washington Post, where he wrote about security. He now is one of the few individual bloggers making a phenomenal living because he's actually got unique and powerful things to say about security and very often privacy. So Brian has a story which we posted in our Facebook comments under this, earlier today. Take a look at both the Stanford article, there's a link there, I'll repost it in the comments under this. But Brian has a story, and in his story it's labeled something like, only the very rich or the very poor will have privacy in the future or even now. And what prompted Brian to write the story is he was flying in or out of Reagan National Airport, DCA, and he saw a car and a guy was sitting there with some software and cameras and recording all the license plates that were coming in and out of the airport. Of course, he focused in on this. He was well aware of the automated license plate readers that exist. And the guy spoke to him very transparently and said, yeah, I do this for the airport. Brian, being an expert, did a lot more research, talked to the company, and of course it turns out many airports use technology like this. And the reason they use the technology is they will help you find your car if you've forgotten which lot it's in. I guess some airports as well will, if you park longer than you were supposed to, it's one of the ways they can keep track of the actual timing. Obviously some real privacy concerns, but as Brian notes, you're in public, and when you're in public, what privacy do you have? Your car is there on the public street. A number of leading academics, our friends Woody Hartzog, Evan Selinger, and others have talked about this as obscurity. You didn't have privacy in public, but who's paying attention to what you're doing when you're in public in some airport parking lot? Do they really know where you are? Well, now they do know where you are, and how do we deal with that? In Europe, perhaps we say, nobody has the right to use your information, even if it's in public, beyond certain very specific uses. But in the US, where we assume, unless you're misrepresenting or doing something unfair, that data that's public is public, and where any effort to constrain it might really bump into free speech issues. I see this. What right do you have to tell me not to use or know information that I now know? Really challenging issue. Obviously, perhaps one of the solutions might be maybe restrictions not around data in public, but perhaps persistently tracking somebody over time. The courts seem to recognize that there's something different about me seeing you or me continuing to track and know where you are over time. Maybe there is some right that we can gather there. The NTIA, as folks know, gathered up a group to try to come up with best practices for drones. One of the real problems was, how do you promise somebody privacy from a drone when the drone is in public? The media groups were very concerned that any limit could constrain their ability to do their job, and the most heated debates, which luckily we resolved, were around exactly what sort of best practice or what sort of carve-out do you provide for the media. Who's the media today? Broadcasting here on Facebook. Am I the media? I have 150,000 or so followers on LinkedIn. Facebook follows. Catch up. Am I the media? Am I now able to go around and record any information I want? Challenging issues. We don't have the answers, but we're certainly looking for them here at the Future of Privacy Forum. Thanks for joining me on today's Facebook Live.